everybody. How's it going? Thanks for being here. If you were on here, hit that like button. Hit the like button. Tag anybody on the show who you think may find it interesting and may want to join. This should be a fun conversation. I think also very relevant. By now, you guys are familiar of the Woman King. I think it just dropped last weekend, if I'm not mistaken. But it's been getting a lot of traction. Also, it has been causing a ton of controversy. I've seen a lot of different feedback, a lot of different scrutiny, some people praising it, some people hating it, and everything in between. So I wanted to have this conversation because I think it's important that we talk about and understand, the way images, media, movies continue not only to portray us, but how it actually impacts us, how it impacts the community, especially those movies that are supposed to be dealing with, the history of Black folks. So we're going to talk about it, and we're really going to try to dissect this question of whether or not the Woman King is anti-Black male. So I'm excited to be joined today by special guest, again, PhD historian, very well versed on just African American history, also history in Africa, and I think he's going to offer a very unique and timely perspective on this whole topic. So without further ado, I'm going to bring him on. We're going to continue the conversation. Also, guys, hit the like button and show support to the show. If you like what we're doing here, if you want to see more positive content that is, supporting your cause, supporting your messaging, be sure to support your favorite content creators. You can find me on Cash App or Venmo, Shay Sade. Also, be sure to support the special guest. Information is down below. And without further ado, I will bring them up. Hey.
Hey, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing great.
Great. Well, again, I'm so happy to have you. I'm grateful to have you. This should be a fun conversation. As I mentioned earlier, this whole video has caused quite a bit of stir. And I think it's safe to assume, based upon the poll that I just took, that a big portion of people think this movie is just feminist propaganda meant to feminize Black men and, promote Black women again as the superheroes of the Black community. So this is something that I've heard over and over. And I want to bring up just a few comments that I saw that really kind of stood out to me. One comment that was on my poll that said, this movie is not historically accurate. These people were the heart of the African slave trade. And of course, they leave out the French and ultimately the British stopping West Africa. British crusade against slavery, Sargon of Akkad, and then the video. So that was one comment that, got some likes. Another one was, this video is anti-reality. Another one says, this was written by 2 white women. That told me enough right there. Another one says, I do not spend money to see woke movies. So, I mean, you kind of get the sense that, there is not a lot of people, well, at least in this side of YouTube, praising this movie. So that's kind of what we have. Again, guys, if you're joining, hit that like button, show support to the show. Also, I will be sure to acknowledge all super chats. And, if we have enough time and things go well, I'll be sure to open up the call lines a little bit later on so you guys can ask any questions that you may have. But I want to start with you, Dr. Issa. Everything that I kind of said and mentioned some of the different comments. I want to get your entire perspective. In your opinion, was The Woman King a good movie?
It was a great movie, in my opinion. It was a great movie. And I'm not just saying it solely for the purpose of, without critically looking at the content. I went to the movie, and if anyone knows me, I'm extremely sensitive on the propaganda that goes out against Black people. But the movie is not a documentary. It's based on historical, some historical truths. Some parts of the movie are indeed authentic, but I also think too that people have a right to protest about the constant misrepresentation of African people, global African people, because I don't say African Americans. I don't really put our history in context out of place of the global African world. We're a global people. And what happened to us is
You know what? I'm getting that real quick. I'm sorry. I'm getting a little feedback all of a sudden. You were totally clear. And then I got, is it just me, guys? Am I the only one hearing feedback? Let me know in the comment section. You were sounding really good in the backstage and like the first couple of seconds. I don't know if something changed in settings, but I want to try that again. I want to make sure I'm getting everything. So I'm gonna mute myself as you're talking and see if that makes a difference, and maybe to see if anything changed on your audio end.
Okay, how about now?
Okay, it says it sounds bubbly. Okay, so some people are.
Yeah. I don't know what to say. My connection says 5 bars, so I don't know what to say on that.
Let me bring you back, and then I'll bring you back in. So like I said, you were fine right when you started, and then it started to get a little scraggly. So
okay,
I'm gonna take you back and then bring you back in. Sorry, guys, bear with us. This is one of the great things about live streaming, especially when you have people coming from different aspects of the country. You don't always know what you're going to get. So let's try this again. Okay, let's see how you are doing there. Hopefully this is good.
Okay, can you hear me now?
I'm still getting
it's still bubbly.
Yeah. Let me. Okay, try now.
Hello.
Yeah, I don't know if do you happen to have like I don't know, earphones? Maybe we can try it that way and see if that makes a difference. Sorry, guys. I don't know why this is happening.
Let me switch to another Wi-Fi. 1 second.
Okay. Hey, guys, bear with us. Struggle stream. This means it's going to be a good stream. Anyways, guys, so please bear with us. We are over here trying to figure out what's going on. Like I said, it was fine. Everything was fine when we were backstage, and then we start going live, and everything wants to stop working.
How about now?
Okay, let's try
now.
Okay, so let's go back and see. I think hopefully you're good.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Oh, you say it's the Wi. Okay, so somebody's saying it might be the Wi-Fi. Okay, so they're saying the feedback isn't horrible. Okay, so I'll as you're talking, I'll put it on mute, and then we'll see if you guys are hearing anything extra crazy in the comment section. Let me know. I'll be looking at you guys to kind of help me gauge the experience. But so going back to what you said, I'd asked you whether or not you thought it was a good movie, and then you started to explain that you actually thought it was a great movie, and that's kind of where we got cut off.
Right. Yeah, I think it was a great movie. I wasn't expecting it to be a documentary. Before I noticed who the writers and production, those who produce the movie, and more importantly, I understand the politics, the serious, real politics, the economic politics, the geopolitics, and what this means to really tell the truth and be historically accurate. Also, we're very complex, right? We can go and look at a Boys in the Hood or Friday, and get laughs, but when it deals with those very sensitive topics that deal with our history, and particularly how we ended up in America speaking English, we really can't really deal with that because we really don't know the history. We don't really understand. And if we're going to boycott something, if we're saying we're going to boycott the movie based on its historical inaccuracies, then we need to pull all of our children out of the public school system, because a lot of the textbooks are historically inaccurate. Right? I can tell you as a professor, a lot of them. And this has to do with a lot of issues, but mainly with the issue that we are not in power, and that's something Black people have yet to really fathom or deal with. We're not in power. We don't control the state apparatus. The Hollywood is controlled by the government. And so if we think the government, the same government that enslaved our ancestors, that erased our history, not only here, but even in Africa, in the Caribbean, same thing. It's a colonial education in the Caribbean. It's a colonial education in Africa. And it's most definitely a colonial education in the United States, woefully. There may be bits and pockets where some of us are able to teach to an extent. But, you know, Dr. John Henrik Clarke would always say, and Dr. Amos Wilson would say that education, to educate a people, is serious business. Nobody, if I come in and I wage war on your ancestors and take countless of millions away and keep them subjugated for hundreds of years, do you really think I'm going to educate you to overthrow what I've done and change that? No. Who does that? Nobody does that. Nowhere in human history. And so
I'm sorry, Doctor. Real quick. I'm sorry. I'm getting you. I hear they're still saying there's a bit of feedback. Do you know if you happen to have it says, yeah, if you're running YouTube on your laptop or phone, tell them to turn it off. Like, do you have another tab open?
I have my laptop, but I cut off the volume. I should cut it off.
Yeah, maybe you can try that and see if that makes a difference. It says, yeah, if you're running YouTube on his laptop.
Okay, I cut it off.
Okay, let's see if that helps. Okay, I'm sorry. You were on a roll, and I want to make sure people are able to hear.
All right, how about now? Is it better?
Let's continue and see.
Okay. Let me cut it off on my phone too. I don't have it on my phone, but let me cut it off my phone. So what I'm essentially saying is that much of our problems with the movie has to do with our inability to appropriately articulate what happened to us. And this myth that we live in a myth as Black people in America. And the reasoning for this is not our fault, because we don't control how education and information is distributed to us. We have no control over that. So we're subject to what those who have oppressed us give us. We don't even understand why we speak English. We have no idea. We think, we've been speaking English for forever. No, that's recent. Especially Black folk. We didn't come here speaking English. And some of us don't speak English well to this day, including me. It's not in my bloodline. This language wasn't in my bloodline for the last 3,000 years. This is a new thing. And for my family, coming from the rural South 2 generations ago, I'm probably one of the first in my family to have some basic competency in English. But I understand historically why that is the case. We don't know, right? And so, so I think this interview, this conversation that we're going to have right now will sum up a lot of issues, because I've been horning in on this issue with you guys on this show. Several times I've dealt with this issue. Right. What I think the best thing that happened this is the best thing that happened to Black America in the last 20 years as it regards a conversation on reparations. Right.
So you're saying this movie was one of the best wins towards reparations in Black America?
Yes. A conversation towards real reparations.
Okay.
You see, look, I'm going to tell you some stuff that nobody else can tell you.
Right.
I'm about to say some stuff that's going to blow some people's minds that I've never talked to about. I think I dealt with a little of it on Clubhouse, and I'll deal with a little more today. I'm not going to give everything, but it's enough to have people really start thinking for those who want to think. Right. So let's start with this. Like I said, it's the best thing that ever happened. I've seen numerous podcasts and YouTube and Clubhouse discussions on this, and it's all emotional. About 85% of it is emotional, right? With very little inaccuracy. And when those of us who talk about the gendered issues, that's nothing new. Francis Quest Wesley warned us about this, start warning us about this 5 decades ago. Right, but that is the process. That represents us as within our process of being an oppressed, stateless people. But we have the illusion of inclusion, that we are included in this society. So we expect those who have historically oppressed us to give us what they took from us. Why would they do that? Who does that anywhere?
Okay,
but hold up. But if we understand some very important concepts that I'm going to lay out today, it will help us to start thinking appropriately on what moves we need to do next for those who really want to know.
Right. Okay. So you're saying that the comments, the feedback, the pushback that you've heard, it's really based upon, a lot of it's emotional. And then, a lot of it is making reference to the gender dynamics, which are very real, and the tension and the toxicity that exists between the gender dynamics. But you're saying, well, like, duh, that's what happens when you've kind of experienced what Black folks have experienced. And also, you can't be surprised because this movie was not created by people who historically have your best interest in heart. So this is nothing new. Like, of course, you would go see a movie about Black folks, not written by Black folks, and there's going to be some toxic stuff in it. Like, that's not surprising.
Right. Exactly. And when I mean, that movie on Amistad, it wasn't historically correct.
Okay.
We don't even understand the basis of why they even had the movie and why the Amistad case went to the Supreme Court. We have no idea. But I can tell you now, it's all about what we've been talking about in this on your show. Every time I come on, I talk about the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so I'll start with this. Let me make this interesting for you. Right. People like to hear, they want to be entertained. Well, let's start with entertainment. In 2018, one of my favorite entertainers of my generation, by the name of Common, he's a rapper out of Chicago.
Yeah.
Right? He's a poet extraordinary, a performer, a movie star, a writer, a businessman. One of his first movies, he has started his own production company. And he hired a young lady who was once over Queen Latifah's production company. I think her name is Shelby Stone. He hired her to run his production company.
Mm-hmm.
And when the book Baracoon dropped in 2018, it sent shockwaves for those of us who understand.
Mm-hmm.
What's the name of the brother who's the drummer for Roots? Has that big old gigantic afro. He just sits up all cool.
I'm horrible with names, so y'all gonna have to help me. Y'all gonna have to help me.
Yeah. Come on, you guys. This is Black culture. We need a call and response. So respond in the comments.
Y'all let me know.
Tell us the name of the drummer for Roots. Now, I'm going to make you guys do a little work. You tell us. What are your subscribers saying? What are they saying?
Questlove. I'm horrible.
Questlove. Exactly. Now, I know his manager very well, right? I met her at a marijuana convention about 2 years ago in New Jersey. And I know her father, who's a big time marijuana distributor. He used to bring marijuana and hash into the country from Afghanistan since the 1980s. So, and she was telling me a lot about him. And I told her, I said, you know what? Let me tell you something you don't know about him. She said, well, I know everything about Questlove. I've been his manager for the last 20 years. There's nothing. I dress him. I do everything for him. I said, I bet you don't know that his maternal ancestors, or is his paternal ancestors, were a part of 130 something Africans who were brought on a ship to the United States. And the last survivor of that ship died less than 100 years ago. She said, what are you talking about, Dr. Issa? I said, I thought you told me you knew everything about it. She said, well, you know, I'm just talking. I said, no. It has been identified through DNA and Census Bureau records that his ancestors, the progenitor, those who started his bloodline in this country, were on a ship called the Cotilda, which some people claim or allege was the last slave ship, in which it was not the last slave ship. But it came around 1860, right before the Civil War, 1 year before the Civil War. It was brought into Alabama. And she said, no, I don't know that. And I said, well, have you ever heard of an artist, a literary writer by the name of Zora Neale Hurtson? She said, yeah. I said, well, guess what? Common just signed a contract with Lionsgate. Lionsgate is one of the major Hollywood production companies to put out a series, a movie series on a book by her called Baracoon. And it's a book about Cojoo Lewis and 100 and something else, 120 to 30 Africans who were brought over from Africa illegally during a period when this was illegal to Alabama. And the man who did it went to Dahomey, the same Dahomey that the movie is about, made a bet with numerous of New York financiers, got financed, went over, and within 8 weeks came back with a boat full of Africans and made a stupendous profit of more than 1,700% after making a bet. And then went and wrote an article about it later on in his life, saying how he easily smuggled dozens of Africans into the country during a period when it was illegal and burned the ship on the coast of Alabama. Not only did he burn the ship, they just found the ship about 2 years ago.
Wait, okay, so I'm trying to
hold up, let me finish. Hold up, give me about
Are
1
you
more
still
minute.
Go? Okay, I'm trying to take it all in. That's a lot of information.
Give me 1 more minute. And so Common, yeah, I know I'm throwing a lot of information out here, right? And this is what our people need. We got to get used to the proper information. Everything that I'm saying to you, you can go and research yourself. And you can get it from a credible sources, primary sources. So Common signed a movie deal in 2008 saying that he was going to do a movie on Baracoon, Zora Neale Hurston's book, Baracoon. Okay. And let me tell you this, that Zora Neale Hurston, because he tried to publish this book in 1927, the book had been suppressed all the way till almost 80-something years, all the way into 2018. So you got to ask your this question. What happened with Common? Why didn't Common put out, if he said he had signed a deal to do this movie, how in the hell did these other people who are non-African get control of the movie, write it, switch it up, right? Because initially the content of the movie was supposed to be about the book Baracoon by Zora Neale Hurtson, which is a story about 1808. I hope y'all listening to me. And if you're not, try, because this is going to affect your own family. This is your own bloodline. So understanding what is going on in Hollywood and how Common somehow was forced out of this movie deal or bought out of this movie deal because you never heard anything else after that. Next thing you know, it's about 6 months ago, Viola Davis is saying that she's starring in this movie.
Okay, so can I have
Sure.
a few questions? Okay, because I think that was a lot of information. I see a few people in the comments who are I think are trying to follow. They're trying to say, okay, so the connection to the story that you just shared, trying to see how that connects to the Woman King. It sounds like what you're saying is that I know you would mention Common, and then you would mention that he was supposed to be doing a movie, or that was an adaptation of a book from Zora Neale Hurtson. Somehow that got suppressed. That's been suppressed for decades. And you're saying that connection, the history of that, the history of, Cotilda and essentially the illegal slave trade, that's connected to the Warrior King. I'm trying to make sure I'm following, and I want to make sure that the listeners are following me too, because they're like, okay, that's a lot of information. How is this all connected?
Well, how is it all connected? Well, that's a good question. It is connected because if you know about, and I'm going to deeply encourage your audience to go and get Zora Neale Hurston's book, Baracoon. And if you get that book, you will see the only living account based on an American source. When I say America, I mean the United States, based on an African who was enslaved by the United States, who was captured. He and 130 other Africans were captured by the Dahomey warriors, female warriors. They raided his village. He was 19 years old. He had just been drafted into his own kingdom's military. He had just recently been drafted. Almost a week after he was drafted, his village was raided by the Dahomey warriors. And his mother, his father, his king, and numerous of other elders in his community, where all of their heads were decapitated by these female warriors that you see in this movie. He was marched to the coast of Guinea and put into a cell called a barracoon. That's the Spanish word for cell, barracoon. And then a European American by the name of Mr. Foster, who had made a deal that he can go to Africa and bring Africans into the United States. This is not 1724. This is not 1738. This is not 1734. This is 1860. And the book that Zora Neale Hurtson wrote is an actual account when she left Columbia University. This is a woman. We want to talk about female heroes. We need to be worshiping her. Don't worry about what Hollywood does. You can't control that. But what I'm telling you is that you ought to thank those European ladies for putting this movie out, because it's going to open up a real conversation. It is already opening it up. And this is the first time you're going to hear on YouTube the real story that you haven't heard about. So I'm trying to put it into context for you. So this guy named Cojoo Lewis, his brother, his sisters, his cousins, about 30 members of his family members were put on a slave ship, 1860, brought to Alabama, sold. Mr. Foster kept some of them on a plantation in Mobile, Alabama, 1 year before the Civil War breaks out. After the Civil War breaks out, he's like 20. After the Civil War ends, he's like 25. He and others who were on that ship with him decided to form their own community and tried to raise funds to go back to Africa from where they were taken from. This is like 1866, 1867 now, but couldn't raise the funds. So they set up an African kingdom in Alabama. It is now called Afrikatown. Columbia University in New York City, their anthropology department got a lot of money to go into the Deep South and basically study the behavior of Africans, because Cojoo Lewis was not the only African who was brought over during this time period. There were tens and tens of thousands of others who were brought over during this time period. Zora Neale Hurtson in 1927, at the request of a European Jewish American, said, go down to Alabama. There's this guy, he's very old. Record his life story, bring it back to us so that we can analyze it. She goes, she meets with Cojoo, and he tells his story. He's 95 years old. He was brought here at the age of 19.
Wow, that's crazy.
Do you hear me? No, listen to me. The movie is supposed to be about this, but something happened. We don't know yet. But hopefully with your help, with your audience help, you guys should demand what happened. Right? But I know the history and I know the political dynamics, and I understand why these things stop happening, why these things happen. Right? So, hold up, I'll be done in 2 minutes. So she records this story, and he goes into detail in the book Baracoon, how he ended up in the United States at the age of 95 years old. And he details how these Dahomey women came into his village, his kingdom, not village, kingdom.
Okay.
Not village, which deals with another aspect of the Act of 1808, because the United States has signed numerous of treaties, about 5 between 1808 and 1850, that they would not go into Africa, make war on African people who had not made war on them, bring them back to the United States for the purpose of human trafficking and slavery. And the origins of human trafficking has everything to do with 1808. We use it loosely now, but it has everything to do with Africa. So he tells this outstanding story. She takes it back to Columbia University, Zora Neale Hurtson. They do what they want to do. They really were using it because they really want to end all African culture in the United States. They want to make sure that the process of forgetting where you came from was fully in effect. But she has something else in mind. And let me tell you something that you'll never hear from anybody else. I think that one of Zora Neale Hurston's own ancestors, because she's one of her, on her mother's side, I believe they're from Alabama. I think one of her own ancestors may have come over recently too, because she took this thing personal. She took it so personal that she even later in her life became a Yoruba initiative, was initiated into the Yoruba tradition.
Okay.
And was a full practitioner. I'm talking about in the 1950s, 40s, 50s, and 60s until she died broke. And she wrote the book Baracoon, sent it to her publisher, the same people who had published several of her other best-selling books. They rejected it because they didn't want the world to know what the United States or agents of the United States and agents of state governments had done illegally. And she kept insisting that her book be published, and they ruined her career. They destroyed her and suppressed her book up until 2018. The book comes out in 2018. It's a bestseller. It's all over the media. Common says he's going to publish the book. And then next thing you know, you don't hear anything from Common. You hear that these other people are going to publish it. So what they do in this movie called Woman King, they changed the history. Now the focus is on the Portuguese instead of on the American enslavers.
Oh, okay.
Do you get where I'm coming from?
Okay, let's.
So it takes America out of the story. But you wouldn't know this. This is why I say it's the best thing that happened to Black America as it regards having a real conversation on slavery. If we stop being intellectually lazy and try to understand what's really going on. So I hope I'm making sense. The movie is really about Cojoo Lewis, whose village was raided at the request of American enslavers. He is captured. He and his family members and 160 to 130, 160, some people say 115 Africans brought to the United States, sold throughout the American South. He, at that time, they thought he was the only last survivor, but he wasn't. There were others who died. One lady died in 1945. She was brought on the same ship with him. Guess how old she was? 2 years old.
Oh, God, that's horrible.
Oh, no, this was the norm.
Yeah.
This is how probably your maternal or paternal ancestors came over. They probably came over very young like that, between the age of 2 and 15. That was very common during that period because they would get more work out of you. And the life expectancy on those plantations, particularly as it regards sugar and cotton, was like 8 to 15 years. You were dead. So you had to go and replenish. And this kills this story of the breeding, not saying it didn't happen. They tried to do it, but it didn't work too well. And they constantly needed laborers. They had to feed this machine called cotton. The U.S. at this time is the global supplier of raw cotton. And they have to feed this machine. So there's so much to this story that I'll never be able to tell in an hour and 30 minutes. This is like a semester class, 2-3 semesters of class, and dozens of books and primary sources and journal articles.
Yeah.
Right? But the movie is really about Cojoo Lewis. So somehow these Europeans struck a deal with Common. Now, right now, I have no evidence on this, but I am what do you call this in law? I am this is circumstantial evidence based on what has happened, and I'm the only one that know this. And you guys are the first ones on YouTube and social media to hear this. So what it does is open up a conversation. It's not about whether or not the movie they were feminized and all of that. You're missing the point. If you jump into that emotion, then you're going to miss the main point. Somehow, somewhere within American culture, there is a war going on among certain groups of American Europeans who want to tell the truth. And they're giving you a chance to talk about this. But you're missing the point because you are intentionally being misled and are intellectually too lazy to go out and further your own research. But you're not going to hear this anywhere else.
Okay. So I'm like, a lot of information there. I'm trying to track back. So basically you're saying, I mean, this movie was essentially supposed to be about Cojoo Lewis. It was a adaptation of a book from Zora Neale Hurtson, but there was, Hollywood took it and did its Hollywood thing. But it is a win because it starts to tell somewhat of a truer story around what actually happened in slavery.
Well, let's be precise. It doesn't just tell a true story. Let's be very precise in our wordplay. Mm-hmm. It tells the story. The movie is about 1808. This is about the Dahomey kingdom, who is engaged in the slave trade post 1808 treaties with America, Brazil, Portugal, Spain, Germany, England, the Dutch, the Danish, and all other European powers who are involved in the slave trade and signed treaties saying that they're going to stop, but they didn't stop. This is what the movie is about. It's about the illegal capture of Africans.
Okay.
And it's directly about 1/3 of your listening audience who are from the United States, whose ancestors were brought into this country after 1808. That's what this is really about. And this is the conversation. So what I'm saying is that these people, it's like they're playing an intellectual game, but they know some of us know. And they're at war, I'm telling you, because why else would they release it like this? Why would they take it from Common? I'm thinking maybe Common was going to tell the truth. Maybe he wrote the script. We don't know. Where's the script that Common wrote? And maybe they said, "Oh, no, this is too factual. We got to come." And maybe some of these ladies who are the producers in this movie, maybe some of their ancestors were involved directly in the illegal slave trade, like most European elite families. Maybe, but I bet you your audience out there will start doing the research and find out who these people are in their relationship to 1808, their families. Do the search on these people's families. Search these people. Go to the Census Bureau and search their families. Who are their families? Take it back to the 1840s and 50s and see what businesses.
Yeah. So this is a problem in our community. Yeah, now I hear your thing. So I'm taking it in. I know that some of the audience, I think there's a few questions. We're trying to track along of some of the bigger things or some of the overall points. Because there is a lot of information, which is all good. But it's, have to take it in. Some people have to take it in pieces before it can kind of come together. So, like you said, this is a conversation about the legal slave trade that hasn't really been had, and that's the important thing about this because, as you've mentioned in previous videos, as you mentioned in previous conversations, the case for reparations to be made is really based upon the illegal slave trade. That's and this is why. This conversation about the illegal slave trade has never really been a talking point. It's never really been a thing because I guess the powers that be knows that if that information is out there front and center, then there is a legitimate case to be made for that. And that essentially is, in your opinion, why this is such a big win and why conversations about it being anti-Black male or it being pro-feminist, all those different things are secondary to the overall.
Yes, okay. They're all secondary. This is really about the illegal slave trade and reparations and how to really win a reparations suit. Because you can't win a reparations. I hear people talk. I heard one guy talking about, I want my reparations. The woman king is trying to mess it up. And we want our reparations for slavery that we did in the work after slavery. And I'm like, dude, you know nothing about American law. You only can win reparations on what was legal. Slavery was legal. Jim Crow was legal.
Well, yeah, that's the
thing.
It
was outlawed eventually, but it was legal.
Yeah,
but then it became the Supreme Court outlawed it. You only can get money based on what was illegal. And it was illegal to bring Cojoo Lewis and his family here and hold them into slavery. That is the money. You can take that to the bank all day and all night. And if you can do the diligent research on your own family history, look, Dahomey, yes, the Dahomeyans, but they weren't the only group of Africans who were engaged in the slave trade. They weren't. You have the Ashanti nations. There are tens of thousands of black people flocking to Ghana now. Right now, the Ashantis were engaged in the slave trade. The Dahomeys, those from the Congo, all of these different ethnic groups. And even there were Ashantis who were caught up in the slave trade, just like in Dahomey. If you saw the movie, the king of Dahomey even goes on to say that his mother was sold into slavery into Brazil. Although he was a major slave trader, his own family members. Even if you read the book Baracoon, Cojoo Lewis talks about the nephew of Dahomey, the Dahomeyan king, Gele, who sells his own nephew into slavery and puts him on the same ship. He's a prince. Put him on the same ship with Cojoo Lewis, and Cojoo Lewis then fought this man for many years when they got into the Americas. He represented the same group of African elite who had enslaved and killed his family. Mm-hmm. And he said they had to find a way to make peace with this man for being in the Americas, because they began to understand later on that it was none of their fault.
Yeah.
So this is going to require our audience to be a bit more informed, and we can do this. I teach for a living. I've been teaching on the collegiate level for 25 years, and I know what people can do. I know how smart we are. I know how great we are. But right now, the games are being played on us, and we're missing the point. So I'm here to set the record straight.
Okay. Well, I do want to have I did want to open up the call line for a few minutes if anyone had any questions. Also, I want to acknowledge some of the super chats. Shout out to Dane C. I see it's not breaking news to reveal that the slave trade continued after the slave trade ban occurred, since we know slavery continued post-Civil War. Thank you for the 5 on the super chat. Shout out to BitMax. It says, they are trying to save capitalism by giving us reparations. This is the underlying theme. I appreciate the super chat. I think I also saw one other one come through. Shout out to Dane C with the 2. It says, hey, Shay, looking beautiful as always. And Dr. Issa, thank you for the support. Also, I did see some support come through from Hakeem on the cash. I appreciate you, Hakeem, for always showing your support. Thank you. So guys, again, if you like what this is about, be sure to hit the like button. Also show support to Dr. Issa. He is dropping a lot of history. Be sure to check out his channel and his information. If you would like to really, really get into the nitty gritty about this different stuff, he has a ton of information. He's just simply not able to share it all today. But if you want to learn more, if you would like to be informed, be sure to check him out. So for those of you guys who have specific questions or things that you would like to raise about this overall issue, the overall topic was, is woman king anti-Black male? He gave his position and why this whole topic really has everything to do with illegal slave trade and reparations. So again, if you guys want to call in, if you have your thoughts, your concerns, any feedback, I've dropped the link here. So just please be respectful, please be concise. And we have a few minutes to chat. So it looks like I have someone back here.
And please go, like she said, go on, go to my channel and subscribe. I'm going to start my own channel. I've started it a while ago, but it's been inactive for the last couple of years. But I've been, by popular demand, people have asked me to come on and start talking about a lot of current events and trying to make sense out of them. And this is what a PhD in history does, particularly a PhD from a person who has been an activist, an international activist for the last 25 years. And also, again, go to my Cash App and make a donation. I will greatly, greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, guys, you can check out his information. I have his Cash App right here in the little banner below. It's Dr. Dr. Jossie Issa. So be sure to show support. Also, you can find links to his YouTube and also his Cash App in the description box. So if any moderators are here, please be sure to drop that. And guys, like I said, we have a few minutes if anyone wants to call in or ask any additional questions. Let us know. How's it going? Is it BMAC252?
Yes, hello. How everybody doing? Hey, Doc. How you doing, Dr. Issa?
Hey, what's up, man?
How you doing? Good to see you. Yeah, it's me, man. It's me.
Look,
I had a quick
brother. Let me say this. I've been working with these brothers. Saw me on Sarnetta TV about 4 years ago.
Yeah, it's been 18, 17.
And I will drive all of this is during the height of my civil issues, my court cases. I would drive back and forth to North Carolina, rural North Carolina, and help them with a lot of community-based programs, just from Sarnetta. And then about 2.5 years ago, I told them, look, I'm about to go to Africa. Y'all want to go? I've been telling y'all I'm going. And they've gone. And this young brother here himself, he and another brother by the name of Jason, because of me showing them how to get around in Africa, I've made over 60 trips myself to various countries. I took them once, showed them how to move and what to look out for. They have built 2 water wells in Africa. Water wells where people didn't have water before, accessible water, where they had to walk 2 to 3 miles. And these are the stories people don't know about the work that I do, and I don't talk about it because I'm not one who's into the glamour. I'm about someone who's about the work and the product, the finishing product. So I'm so proud of this young brother and all the work that he has been doing.
Oh, thanks, Doc. Hey, Doc. Hey, you inspire us. You inspire us. But Doc, I had a question about what you was talking about the illegal slave trade. Can remember we had this conversation. But my question is it's similar to what somebody put in the chat about capitalism. Do you think that since capitalism is dying, that they're going to try to breathe life into capitalism by giving us reparations? So, like, giving us reparations is like the last breath of life into capitalism to keep capitalism flowing because it's actually dying right now. That's really my question.
I'm going to tell you what Dr. Gerald Horne has been saying for the last 30 years. Basically, what he said is that in the last 50 years, during the 1960s, at the height of the civil rights movement, the Black elite, including the NAACP, made a deal with the white elite of America, the European elite of America, the African elite and the European elite. Dr. King is assassinated. Before that, W.E.B. Du Bois leaves this country and he writes a very serious exit letter called Whether, Why, or Not. And he explains why he was leaving the country and that the African elite of the United States made a deal to get rid of Black people by the year of 2000, or to make them a non-people, right? So that they will forget their history and culture, right? And so Gerald Horne, for the last couple of decades, has been saying that if we're going to get reparations in this country, real reparations, it has to be connected to the international world. And the success of the civil rights movement and all those other movements had to do with our connection with the rest of the world, because everything is global now, right? And so if reparations is given, it's going to be given not simply because to save capitalism, although that's going to be a part of it, It's going to be given because the rest of the world are going to demand that they do this because of the West growing its dying influence globally. Just yesterday, I posted on Facebook and people don't, we're so into because of what social media is doing to us, we're not really thinking. I posted a interview of a former French ambassador to Israel, where he basically says that, in fact, the title of it is "The End of the Western Domination." He said it's over with. And so what we're seeing now, some of the elite don't believe that it's over with, but he's not the only one to say that. A lot of people have been saying that. The post-American world, the end of the West. In order to save it, what people are saying, though, that the only way they're going to save capitalism is that the world demands that those Africans who were caught up in the slave trade, particularly the illegal slave trade, be compensated. So yes and no, but it's not just going to happen because they want to. It's going to happen because there's a demand. You have to demand it. And this is what Frederick Douglass would always say about demand. Nothing happens without demand. The civil rights movement just didn't fall off the shelves. No, Black people stood up and demanded their rights. And because of that, the world responded to that, and they had to give us some type of deals. Some treaties were signed, and we got a lot out of that. And that's a whole nother conversation. And so our struggle has to be connected internationally with the rest of the Black world in particularly. But right now, we're losing out on that effort. We're losing terribly on that effort.
Okay, all right. Thanks, y'all. I appreciate y'all for taking my question. Y'all have a good day.
Yeah, you too. Have a good one.
Peace.
So it looks like we have another caller who's, I think, joining in. Is that the reconstruction? I think. Okay, you're muted.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. My 3-year-old running around here giving the house hell, so I was trying to.
It's okay. So is that the reconstruct? I'm not able to see the full name for some reason.
It's called the Reconstruction Project.
Okay, the Reconstruction Project. Okay, so what do you have for Dr. Issa?
I was listening to the conversation for a while. I really don't have anything more to add to it, just other than the fact that about the topic of is the movie anti-Black and anti-Black male, and I definitely agree that it is. Especially just how the movie itself was constructed, and when you know the history of the Dahomey versus Oya people, and the movie is depicted as though the Oya is the villains. You know, the Oya is the Yoruba people, right?
Look, hold on. We're not gonna go. You haven't listened to what we were talking about. We've already gone over that, right? And so you're talking to somebody that's a professional historian. I teach for a living.
Okay.
Right? So I deal with this and I write on this issue. So please go back, listen to what we had to say about this. You're missing the essence. We don't need you to come on and give a history lesson about a history that you're really not that familiar with.
How do you know I'm not that familiar with it? I'm married to a Yoruba woman. My son is Yoruba. Hold on. Because
you're not that familiar. Because
how do you know that?
Familiar, you asked me, how do I know that you're not that familiar about this history? Because I just told you that this conversation is really about Cojoo Lewis, but I don't think that you heard us or
I didn't. Well, I didn't for one. So no disrespect. No disrespect, sir.
If you understood that, why would you come on and say the things that you said?
What did I say? You didn't give me. You didn't allow me a chance to speak.
You're trying to change the narrative.
I'm not trying to change the narrative. I was talking about the topic at hand.
Well, don't come asking me, professor, do you know about this and do you know about that?
I didn't ask you as a professor.
Don't do that.
I didn't ask you as a professor. Sir, you're being very rude.
No,
right?
I'm not being rude. I'm being authoritative. And you're not.
No, you're being rude.
No,
just because you coining as authoritative doesn't change the fact that you're being rude.
And
I said she asked me did I have the host asked me did I have. Sir, I don't want to do this on somebody else's platform.
You don't have to.
Okay, so if I may, real quick, I think I understand. I know, Dr. Issa, you really wanted to kind of focus on some of the information that were presented up to this point. I don't know if you came on a little later on the Reconstruction Project. I think maybe it was a little bit.
I did.
Yeah,
I came on a little later on.
Yeah, so I think what he wanted to do was kind of focus on some of the work as it relates to the illegal slave trade and different things. What you probably missed at that point was that some of the conversations around this movie, The Woman King, whether it is, anti-Black male, whether it's promoting feminist propaganda, we touched upon that earlier. His position essentially was that can be somewhat of a distraction. The bigger, the win for this movie, as he put it, is that it's forcing the conversation about the illegal slave trade, which up to this point has been suppressed. So I think that's kind of what we wanted to focus in on the call line. Maybe that was a little bit unclear. If I'm sorry if that.
No, it's fine. I mean, I was actually just getting ready to get to that point, but I got cut off. And I see some people in the comments saying I'm being rude or I'm not being disrespectful.
I think it was just a little bit unclear.
Right, because if that's what I'm gonna respectfully bow out, because I think it's incredibly disrespectful regardless of your profession to tell someone they don't know anything when you don't know anything about that person. So
you already admitted that you came in late after you said you didn't.
Okay, but if I came in late and you cut me off, you don't even know where I was going. And that's one thing about people who are professional or quote unquote experts in their field, is that you already assume that I don't know what I'm talking about because you're well versed in your field. I'm a professional artist. I'm not going to assume that someone doesn't know anything about art because
Brother,
I am a professional artist. My name is the Reconstruction Project.
All right,
okay.
Brother,
what I'm saying to you is,
let me tell you something that Marcus Garvey said over 100 years ago, and I'm going to end at that. Intelligent professionals, right? Intelligent people rule the world, and ignorant people carry their burdens.
But I'm not going to be patronized. You have a blessed day, okay? Thank you.
You take care.
All right.
You take care. All right. Well, I think it was a little bit unclear. I know we wanted to focus on some of the information that you would.
Look. The Woman King softens the truth about the transatlantic slave trade.
Yeah.
Those women, right? They engage in slavery, but they're not the only ones, right? We're talking about a period of 500 years of tens of millions of Africans being taken away, killed, or taken away, or arriving in destinations from which they did not originate from. So this is not just about the film, right? The film was created by Hollywood. Hollywood is not going to tell our story. There's so many podcasts and YouTube presentations on whether or not the Woman King it dehumanized African Americans, or whether or not this or that. That's not what we're talking about here. What I'm doing is giving some real information that people are not used to, right? And I'm not going to let a young man, which I've spent my whole life doing this type of work, come in and change the narrative. If he does, then he's going to get disappointed by Dr. Issa. I started off on YouTube on Sarnetta. I'm battle tested. This is nothing. Right? But let me come in and do my job. This is what you asked me to come in and do. So I would prefer people who have some real legitimate questions, who have been in or who have heard the entirety of the show. And I will encourage the young brother to go ahead and look at the show. I presented some information he's not going to hear anywhere else. Anywhere. Right? And he may get something that he can run with. Right? And that's what I would prefer to do. Those are the type of people I would like to talk to, people who can come in and talk about this issue and have very legitimate questions.
I hear you. What's going on, Chantel Simone? Good to see you. I've heard this one. I only debate with my equals. Everyone else I teach.
I debate with somebody who doesn't know more about this subject than I do. I'm not. And I refuse to talk about these various ethnic groups in their actual names, because we'll have to deal with those from Senegambia area. We'll have to deal from those from the Gold Coast area. We'll have to deal from those who brought my ancestors in from the Congo. So this is not just about one group. I hear stories talking about they're the homie, they're the most terrible group of Africans. No, they're not. They were caught up into something. We don't even know why they even got involved in the slave trade. We don't understand the political economy and how many of these African kingdoms and empires have their entire economies were wiped out intentionally and deliberately by Europeans and Arabs, which forced them to go into the slave trade. They were forced. They had no choice. Right? So but that's a whole nother conversation. But we're here specifically to talk about the narrative of what this is really about. And I put out a lot of information. And it's not easy in this day of social media to really think. It's not easy because everybody's an expert. Everybody. And it's, and then people who are not experts, they can come and say how experts are not needed anymore. I mean, this is crazy.
Well, I do appreciate you coming in. I know you've shared a lot of information and a lot of history for to go and look up. You guys, if you missed the replay, you can go back and catch it. You can rewind, all that different stuff. Also, be sure to check out Dr. Jahi Issa's YouTube page, where there's a lot more information there. He's also going to be, I think, doing some more content in the near future. So stay tuned if you would like to hear some additional history and everything as it relates to, not only this movie, just what's happening today. So check his channel out. I do appreciate you for being here. I do want to be mindful of your time. I think you've done a great job of laying out your perspective and laying out why a conversation, as you put it, that has really been about the image, representation of Black folks, representation of Black men, representation of Black women actually may have a deeper meaning that people haven't really been talking about. So I do
and I say that as I end, I say that because we don't control the narrative. We didn't produce the movie, right? The people who produced the movie, or they have another agenda. But what they did do is open up the doors for us to have a conversation on what the movie is really about. And it's about that young man who came here. And even if he was born in Nigeria or Ghana, there is not one family in Africa, not one, that didn't lose someone. So this is a global African issue. This is a global African issue. And this is serious business. Don't let somebody come up and talk to a group of European Jews about what happened to them in Germany. Don't let someone come in and debate their experts when they talk about their Holocaust, and they have their scientists coming in, giving information to help their people get what they need, to get the benefits and the reparations that they need. No, we have to have more respect for our intellectuals. We have to.
Yeah, and I
take it more serious. And I can care less about people saying what experts don't do and didn't do. I just did something on your show that will never be done in the way that I've done it. And for maybe there are 10 people out there who are really going to take this and run. That's fine with me. Because there's a lot in what I said in the last hour and 10 minutes. There's a whole lot that somebody who's diligent can take and run with it. And yes, I will be opening up my own channel in the next week or so. So those who want to hear more content like this, an in-depth conversation on issues like this, go click subscribe, and I'll have something up maybe by this weekend.
All right. Well, I appreciate you calling on. I saw a few. Yeah, Black doctors, white women producers. I'm wholly suspicious about this project. I agree. And I think he mentioned that. And I also agree where it's like, we don't control the Hollywood media representation. So anytime there's going to be a project or a subject matter as it relates to the Black community, you can best believe there's going to be something about it that's toxic, because we're not fully controlling the messaging. But I think what he was trying to speak to was a like I said, was a bigger issue, or another issue that's not really being addressed, that can really help move along the conversation in regards to reparations or what that may mean for the Black community. So again, if you missed that, be sure to catch the replay or just check out his channel. He really talks a lot about his work as it relates to that, and just his work as it relates to what's happening globally in general. So check it out if you guys would like to know more. I do appreciate you coming on, Dr. Issa.
One more point, one last point. I want to say this. Yes, more than 1 million Africans came through Dahomey, right? More than 1 million alone, right? W.E.B. Du Bois estimates that between 50 and 100 million were killed, taken from Africa, or landed in the New World, the so-called New World. And a large percent of them came through Dahomey. I think more than that came through what is known as the more than 46 slave forts in modern-day Ghana. There are 46. Look, there were 46 slave dungeons in Ghana alone. So you would think that more came from that area. Ghana was the international capital, right? And so it's more important to find out, after 1808, who came through these areas, right? And if 1 million came through Dahomey, where did they go? Did they all just go to Brazil? We know that's not the case, because some of them ended up right in the United States, and I talked about that. It'll be better for the brother to go to Alabama or get in contact with me, and I will give you the contact of the family, Cojoo Lewis's family. I'm advising that family. I've been advising them for the last 4 years. I'm their chief advisor as a historian. So, and if he wants to connect with them, they're going over to Benin next month to go back to the kingdom and get their kingdom back and reclaim what was taken from them. This is what this is ultimately about.
Yeah. No, I hear you. So guys, like I said, be sure to check them out. Shout out to Mr. Research TV. It says Viola and her husband are executive investors on this movie. I also see, let's see, I think I saw one other one come through as it Macau DeMarc. I hope I didn't butcher that, but thank you for the 10. It says just showing my support for you, Shay. Thank you for coming in. This is probably unlike any conversation you will hear regarding the Woman King. Some of you guys may agree or disagree, but if nothing else, it's giving you guys information and a perspective and different resources to look into if you so please. Also, shout out to Sir Hale Speaks. Says showing support, respect for what you do, respect to Dr. Issa. Thank you again for the money on the Cash App, Super Chat. Okay, Dr. Issa, it does look like I have one more caller if you want, or if you are good.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, one more, looks like the 18th letter. I'm going to bring you up, and then we're going to take this one home. How's it going, the 18th letter?
How you doing, Miss Sade? How's everything?
It's good. What do you have on the topic?
Oh, well, like as far as I'm just chiming in. I saw that you had a live going on recently, and I looked at the title and it said, "Are Black men trying to be erased?" And I think that's something that has been taking place for quite some time. I don't think it's anything new. As far as the movie The Woman King, it's pretty much, if you look at the writers and the producers that have been involved in it, of course, it's just the same typical narrative that we've been seeing for decades on end. It's not much of anything new. And as far as the history of the Dahomeys tribe, as far as them being involved in the slave trade, what a lot of people don't have to understand, yes, we have had a lot of Africans that were involved in the slave trade because it was no concept of race back then. There was no concept of race at that particular time. But
that's not the reason why we had a lot of Africans involved in the slave trade. That has nothing to do with it. That's misinformation. If you want to get more information on that subject, I would advise you to read a book called How Europe Underdeveloped Afrika by a man by the name of Walter Rodneys, if you really want to get the truth on that. There's another historian. Listen to me very carefully. She's a European American. She just died. She was a mentor of mine. Her name is Gwendolyn Hall. She died in Mexico about a month ago. She was 92 years old. She wrote a book called Afrikans in Colonial Louisiana, and she wrote another book called, her last book was called African Ethnicities in the Americas. And in the first chapter, she details that, and she was a professor for 40 years, and she got her PhD at the age of 60, right? She was a professor for over 30 years. And in her last book, she details that the issue of Africans selling each other is not the real issue. So I gave you two sources so that you can look at and find out for yourself. With that said, I'm going to end right there.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Issa, for sharing your point.
All right.
All right. Hold on. Okay, the 18th letter. So yeah, it sounds like you probably hopped on. He was calling in to share his perspective just on the Woman King. It's probably unlike any perspective you've heard up to this point. I'm not sure if you had a chance to hear the whole thing or majority of the thing. I doubt it, but kind of basically what he was saying to kind of give you guys a summarization. I know some of you guys were asking. He basically was trying to present the information that, yes, of course, the representation of how Black men and Black women, all of that, as far as the media not painting it in a way that is going to be uplifting. Of course, it was not owned and ran by Black folks. We don't really control media. We don't control Hollywood. And so, yeah, of course, a movie that is written about Black folks, right, is not necessarily going to be positive. His position is that that's not surprising. This is kind of what you can expect from Hollywood. What he was trying to point to, and again, a lot of his work has to do with this, is the fact that this forces the issue of the illegal slave trade. Because what's essentially what is happening, for those of you guys who are familiar with work around reparations or actively involved in that, there essentially has been this kind of discourse back and forth that one of the arguments is that reparations is not needed because Afrika basically is largely responsible for it, right? Or that Africans sold other Africans into slavery, so therefore nobody else should have to pay because they were involved. So that's kind of one of the arguments going around. And there's many other arguments, but the big issue he wanted to first on is that this movie is one of the first movies, if I'm not mistaken, that Hollywood produced that really puts the truth out there about the illegal slave trade. Yes, representation is not the best. Yes, there is all kinds of toxic messaging. Yes. But as far as reparations is concerned and the conversation around reparations, that is essentially what he was trying to focus on, that this movie forces the issue that, hey, no, the illegal slave trade was going on. This is the backstory on it. And then for those who are involved in the work of reparations and really want to help to try to get that going, this is something that they can now point to. So I know, like I said, I know there's a lot of information thrown out. There are a lot of different sources. As always, you guys can go back and catch the replay. Like I said, this presentation around the Woman King is probably unlike anything you've ever heard. It's certainly unlike anything I've ever heard, because everything I've heard up to this point has largely been about media representation, which again is not surprising. I don't look to Hollywood to paint a good picture about Black women or Black men. They never have, and they never really will. And even if they supposedly do, it's always going to be to a white audience. They're never necessarily speaking to Black folks. It's usually always going to be to a white audience. So there's usually going to be some form of negativity in it. That it just is what it is. If you want to change that, this is why you have to support your other content creators. This is why you have to support independent content creators. This is why you have to build your own. Just because, like I said, if we're looking at Hollywood to try to represent us, we have hundreds of years of evidence to show that that's probably not going to happen. So that is not surprising. Again, what he offered is a different perspective on how this work has really helped move the needle forward as far as those who are actively involved in reparations. That is what his work is about. So again, if that interests you, be sure to check out his channel. You can go back and catch the replay. I understand there's a lot of information. You may have a lot of different questions. If you would like to know more, like I said, check out his channel. He's going to be doing some more content there. And yeah, that's what we got. So learned so much. Okay, I'm glad some of you guys learned. Again, if you guys have questions, be sure to go hang out with him there. Maybe he can help you out more. What's going on? I'm Courtney Michelle. It's so good to see you here. It's so good to see you. This is Hi Black Butterfly. I'm Courtney Michelle. Appreciate all the support. So yeah, like I said, this has been, for me, this was unlike any conversation around the Woman King that I was expecting to have. He briefly touched upon the anti-Black male and spent a lot of time talking about how this work is a big win for, or is a big step forward for those who actually are actively wanting reparations. So yeah, this was interesting. This was interesting. I know some of you guys may agree, some of you guys may not agree, but if nothing else, it gives you guys something different to consider. I says, can you post a link to the channel? Wait, are you talking about the link of his YouTube? Oh, you said, sorry, Miss Shay, I kept on getting kicked out. It's fine. No worries. I'll have plenty of other times for you to call in. Sometimes audio and stuff, it can just be tricky. I don't know how else to put it. Yeah, see, Woman King is garbage, but the history is interesting. Yes. That's essentially what he was trying to point to. So I appreciate all of you guys hanging out with me, being here, engaging with the special guests. Like I said, I know sometimes I bring on people you guys agree with, sometimes I bring on people you don't agree with, but nothing else, it gives you guys something different to think about, something different to consider. So thank you for hanging out with me, guys. Be sure to hit the like button before you leave. Also, hit the notification bell so that you are notified each time I go live. Be sure to go and support these special guests. Check out his YouTube page. Show him some love on the Cash App. And again, if you really want to know more about history, if you really want to hear it from somebody who's actually, studied the field for decades, and that is his craft, check it out there. He goes really, really, really deep into that and provides good, credible sources for you guys to consider. So without further ado, you said, yes, let's like. And yeah, I'm seeing some of you guys in the comments. And yeah, so without further ado, guys, we'll talk later. And yeah, we'll talk later, guys.